Most of us love that feeling of writing on paper, and it feels personal and more focused. But at the same time, we also know how easy it is to miss things. So then we move to tablets and e-ink devices, or even voice recorders. And while they bring more features, the raw experience of writing still feels missing. And because of that, that simple pen and paper connection slowly starts to fade. But today we are looking at something that tries to sit right in the middle of that, and it looks very simple. Yet it brings in those smart AI features you would want, so you do not miss out on anything while taking notes. And this is the ScribeN Pen AI. It writes like a normal pen, but at the same time it listens and records and transcribes and then even summarizes your meetings. Sounds interesting, right? So now the real question is, how does it actually feel when you use it day to day? So let's get into it. So when you first pick it up, it does not try to feel like a gadget, and that is important. It is a full metal body, around 21 grams, matte finish, available in silver or black, and it has a bit of weight, but not in a way that feels heavy because it feels intentional. And then you start writing, and this is where it gets interesting because it is a 0.6 millimeter ballpoint, real ink, replaceable refill. So the writing experience is just normal. There is no delay and there is no digital surface and no glass either, so it is just paper. And that matters more than we expect because you are not thinking about the tech at this point and you are just writing like you always do. But then at the same time, this pen is doing something else quietly. So inside this pen, there is a studio-grade microphone, along with 64 gigabytes of storage. And the idea is simple. You press the clip button for about half a second, and it starts recording. And from there, it captures the entire conversation around you. So meetings and discussions and calls and anything that happens in that space. Now what we noticed is the mic is tuned more for voices than for environment. So even in a slightly noisy room, it tries to focus on speech. It is not perfect, but it does a decent job of isolating what matters. Then, once you stop recording, that is where the AI side kicks in, and it processes the audio and converts it into text, and then creates a structured summary, and not just raw text, but also highlights an action point. So instead of going back and listening to an hour-long recording, you open the app and you get something that is already organized. And because of that, this shift is subtle, but it changes how you think about note-taking. So here's where things start to feel different. Normally, when you take notes, you are splitting your attention because half of your mind is listening and the other half is trying to write everything down, and because of that, you miss context. But with this, you still write, and at the same time, you do not feel pressure to capture everything because you know the pen is already recording it. So what we found ourselves doing is writing less, but writing more meaningful points, so just key ideas and quick thoughts and small reminders. And then later when you check the transcript, everything fills in around those notes. So it becomes more of a layered system. Because your handwriting gives you intent and the AI gives you completeness. And because of that, the combination feels quite natural once you get used to it. Now, ScribeN supports multiple languages, and it also handles code switching, so if a conversation moves between two languages, it tries to keep up. And this is actually quite helpful, especially in meetings where people mix languages naturally. However, the transcription itself is generally accurate for clear speech, but accents and fast conversations can still affect it, which is expected. And for most professional use cases, it is usable without heavy corrections. And then the summaries are where it becomes more practical because it pulls out key points and also tries to list action items. Well, sometimes it misses nuance, but good thing is it gives a solid starting point, and that alone saves time. So the pen has an 18-hour battery for continuous recording, and in our use, that feels about right. And because of that, we could go through a full day of meetings without worrying about charging, and since it charges over USB-C in around 2 hours, it is easy to top up overnight. Besides, its 64GB storage means you are not constantly managing files, and audio is stored in formats like WAV and Opus, so it is efficient. And this matters because it removes friction, and you do not think about storage limits or battery midday, and it just stays in the background. This is a part that we did not expect to think about as much, but it matters. Because this looks like a normal pen, it does not create that awkward moment in meetings where you place a recorder on the table, and for a lot of professional environments, that changes how people react. Still, we think this is something you should be aware of based on your work, because recording conversations always comes with responsibility, and it depends on how and where you use it. So this kind of fits into a very specific moment in your day, and you probably know it already because you are in a conversation, and you are trying to listen, and at the same time you are thinking about what to write next. And that split is where things start to fall apart a bit because you either miss details or you lose the flow of the conversation. So if that sounds familiar, then this starts to feel useful because it lets you stay in that moment without constantly worrying about capturing everything. And that could be anything, like a client discussion, or a quick sales call, or even a property walkthrough, or just a fast-paced meeting where ideas move quicker than your notes. And even on days where your focus is not fully there, it kind of gives you that second layer of confidence because you know you can come back to it later. So it really comes down to this. If your work depends on conversations that you cannot afford to lose, then this starts to make a lot more sense. So after spending time with the ScribeN Pen AI, it feels less like a gadget and more like a quiet assistant, because it does not try to replace your habits, and instead it builds around them. So you still write and you still think, but at the same time you have this layer in the background that captures everything you could miss. And we think that is where its value really sits. Because it is not about doing more, and it is about not losing what already happens. So if your work depends on conversations, and if you often find yourself going back to fill gaps, then this is something worth considering. But at the same time, it depends on how you work, because if that problem does not exist for you, then the benefit may feel smaller. And that balance is important. That was all. Thanks for watching. If you found it helpful, give it a like and subscribe for more videos. And don't forget to share your experience in the comments.